Hello, conventionally attractive humans. My name is RidersDX, and today we are talking about the Sonic movie because that is the only thing that's worth talking about nowadays. Nothing else really matters in this world. No like controversial political things going on. No, no like really crazy pop culture things happening. It's all about my blue hedgehog and the rivalry with this alien black hedgehog that suddenly appeared in this movie universe. But today I'm being joined by a really special guest. His name is Ty, you know, like Ty Dollar Sign or just Ty, I don't know. And what we're going to be discussing today is the ending of the third Sonic movie. And not just like the general ending, but specifically the post-credit scene, the first one, for those that are in the know. So if it is not obvious enough, this means that spoilers are abound.
What?
So
no, really?
I know, right?
I had no idea.
You know, I think there's a chance if you keep listening for like another like 10 to 15 seconds, you will get spoiled about something. So you have been warned. So I don't want to see any whiny babies in the comment section being like, you spoiled me. I'm like, if it's not going to be me, it's going to be someone else. Like, I almost got spoiled.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised because I got spoiled for Sonic movie 2. But for this one, I stayed clear of spoilers. I was actually shocked.
Well, when did you see it on Thursday? Was it like early in the day? Or?
I saw it. Technically, the show was at 7:10, but the movie didn't start playing till like close to 8 o'clock.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, I saw around like a similar time, which I thought would have been like early enough to avoid spoilers. But I almost saw this stupid short that said post-credit scene in the title. I was like, hell no, swipe away. Like, well, we're not looking at this.
Yeah,
thankfully. That was only the second post-credit scene, so the really meaty first credit scene was completely unspoiled for me, so I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's better for it to have been the second one because, let's be honest, everyone and their mother could have predicted the second one than the mid-credit scene. If you're a Sonic fan...
At first, I was a little upset that like I got spoiled by that, but then like... I saw my boyfriend, and my boyfriend was saying like, well, of course that would happen. And I was like, oh, you know what? You're right. I could have guessed that. Yeah. So that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But let's officially cross into spoiler territory.
Sure.
Ty, why don't you do the honors and give us the breakdown of what happens in the post-credit scene?
So it starts off with Sonic winning the race at the end of the movie. And he ends up overshooting the finish line, and he ends up in New York State Park. A little more on that speculation a little later.
Overachiever.
And then, lo and behold, Terminator style, Metal Sonic comes into the fray, exactly looking like his video game counterpart. He's about to blast Sonic. He tries to kill him. Sonic evades his attack. He attacks him back. And he kind of makes fun of him, saying that he admires the cosplay, but there's only one original. And then to the surprise of, I think, most Sonic fans, it wasn't just one Metal Sonic, it's an army of Metal Sonics. Again, very reminiscent of the Terminator films. If you've watched that, they all go to attack Sonic. And then the second character comes out, which I low-key was not expecting. It should have been a little bit more obvious to me. But we see a familiar Pico Pico hammer smash through all of the Metal Sonic copies. And a hooded figure comes in front of the sliced moon in half. And Sonic asks who this new character is. And the new character puts the hammer behind her back, unveils her mask to reveal Amy Rose. And we cut to black.
Insane. Absolutely insane. Like, I don't know what I was expecting, but it definitely wasn't that.
So I fully expected Metal Sonic to be in there in some shape or form. It just makes too much sense for it not to be Metal Sonic next. First of all, they skipped my boy for Shadow, which I'm not salty about at all. at all. No, I'm not sure.
I'm kind of glad of how it worked out because I think that Shadow came in at like just the right
Oh,
time to tell a really effective story.
oh, absolutely.
Like if you had Metal Sonic come in before Shadow, then that rivalry thing would have grown a little tired by the time Shadow came over
Right.
because you already kind of had it with Knuckles,
Right.
and then you would have had it with Metal Sonic, and then you would have had it with Shadow. Like it just would have been a little too much.
I do wonder how they're going to try and avoid like new rival appears and tries to attack Sonic. I guess they're doing that with the army of Metal Sonics, but then it's like who's leading this army of Metal Sonics too? Like it's a lot of things we'll get into here, but yeah, Amy is here and I assume like how inconsistent her characterization in the games are, she will be completely different here as well. It seems
She already seems like a completely different character from even Frontiers, to be honest.
She does. I do hope that they retain some of her bubbly personality. I've already seen theories of people saying like maybe Sonic will have the crush on her this time instead of her, which I don't know how I feel about, but we'll see.
Yeah, I would have to see how they would play that out because that's obviously never been done before, and
No.
they've already struggled so much with characterizing Amy in the games.
Yeah.
I don't know if they want to go down such a risky path, but then again, they went down a lot of risky paths with this movie. I
True.
think bringing back Gerald was still fucking crazy. Like absolutely insane.
And it was a different interpretation of Gerald too. But to be fair, Gerald, I don't want to say he's a minor character and like discredit people who like admire the character of Gerald, but in the grand scheme of things, he's not as huge of a character as let's say Amy or Shadow was to get right,
yeah, that's true.
and like I feel like Amy in particular has been kind of a victim of overcorrection in the games. Like, yes, we don't want like the stalkerish behavior that we saw in Sonic Heroes. Like, yeah, that's
and Sonic Adventure, and Sonic Adventure 2, and Sonic CD,
like,
and Sonic X.
like at least for me, it kind of makes sense if you think about it, her as like this little girl who's just like fangirling over Sonic, almost like Sonic's like a rock band person, right? Like somebody that she admires from afar. But I do think they're struggling a little bit because I think they're overcorrecting her into being a little too serious, like in the sense of like she's losing a lot of her like her bubbly like appearance and like her attitude. Like she does have a short fuse if you remember Sonic X.
Yes,
which I used to find hilarious, because she's like this bubbly character that like at any moment can have like this short fuse. I thought that was just like so funny, and I feel like that's the Amy that I miss. Like, yes, she can have a crush on Sonic, but that doesn't define her. It's her bubbly personality with her short fuse anger. Like it's really, really funny. So I hope that aspect of her character is intact somehow. I know like the tarot cards are probably going to be in play there because that's the thing that they're doing with her now. But what do you think?
I mean, it's interesting you bring up the short fuse thing because for me, that's always been like a very hit or miss sort of thing. Like sometimes I'd find it to be pretty aggravating, like depending on the context.
Right.
But the one that stands out to me the most is actually when you get to the end of the hero story in Sonic Riders, and they like the whole script of that game is completely fan-flanderized. It's completely wacky and ridiculous, like to like times 100 levels of like heroes.
Yeah.
And it's just so stupid that it sort of works. So I think Amy's also kind of victim to whichever kind of story the game is trying to tell. Because I recently have been going through Frontiers again, and I got through her part of the story not too long ago, and I definitely felt like she was a bit of a ghost of her former self. I mean, she had that very empathetic, caring for all creatures aspect that they really explored in the original adventure, but she was missing that bubbly aspect of her personality and that like short fuse part of her personality too. And to me, she didn't really seem that different from like an NPC character, in all honesty, in that game, which is not a good thing because Amy Rose is definitely a fiery personality and she deserves to express herself in that way. I just think that they definitely overdid it sometimes, and sometimes it would hit and sometimes it wouldn't. I will say for this movie, you know, because you mentioned something about Sonic being this like rock star like figure that Amy idolizes, Sonic feels noticeably younger in these movies compared to like the video games. Like instead of like being he's like 15 in the games, he feels more like 12, honestly.
Yeah.
Even though he's had some significant character growth since the first movie, he still feels relatively young compared to his game counterpart. So it's sort of tough to see Amy like treat him in that way, especially given the way that they introduced her.
Yeah,
they introduced her to be a bit of a badass, a bit of like a warrior, a bit of an independent.
Right.
So I'm curious to see how they will characterize her, but I don't think she's going to be characterized in that way that we're used to.
Yeah.
Just based off of that, those 5 to 10 seconds they showed off in the post-credit scene, it's clear that they're taking more of a Frontiers kind of approach with her, but hopefully it's a little more fun. Is all I'm really asking for.
Yeah, that's. I think. I don't listen. Amy like can be badass like in the comics and like in the games too. Like, there's a lot of moments of like I remember in Sonic X where like she would kick ass and like she would like she would be like really funny, you know. And I actually did like the way she was. I liked how all the characters were written in Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog. Her bubbly personality really shined through there, and she felt like the Amy that, you know, that was missing for a while. So I hope like in the games she continues to be written like that going forward. But yeah, in terms of the movie, it's a little hard to say what direction they're going with because we don't even know where Amy came from. We don't know where Metal Sonic came from. We don't know a lot of things. Like we're just kind of filling in the details right now. Like, why is Metal Sonic on Earth looking for Sonic? Did he come from the future? Did he come from another planet? Like, I don't know. Like, what do you think, Riders? Like, I know we've been trying to like decipher this for the longest, but like, we don't even know. We don't even know what games they're adapting. We have an idea that maybe it's a little bit of CD, but could it also have elements of Heroes in there? Like, I don't know.
It's so funny because it's like, to be honest, CD didn't come to my mind immediately, even though logically that is the first thing you'd think of because it's Amy and Metal Sonic. Yeah. But the reason CD is not coming to me is because the Amy and the Metal Sonic that you meet in that game is very different from the one being presented here.
Oh yeah.
You know, in CD, obviously Robotnik was the one in charge, but it's not very clear. It seems pretty like safe to assume that this is likely Jim Carrey's last time as Robotnik, just based off of the way that they, you know, had him like sign out the movie here, the way that he was portrayed and stuff. That's just my personal opinion. I've talked to many people that that disagree or think that's still open, and like, I'm not saying that Jim Carrey will say no to a fourth movie, but it seems like they wrote Eggman in a way in this movie that if it was his last movie, then it would seem like a final call.
Oh yeah,
it would seem like a current call.
Absolutely.
So Metal Sonic here potentially could be working under someone else or even under himself. Like, I don't know, because there's a ton of Metal Sonics. Maybe they're either all copies of him or maybe they all share like a collective brain. You know, that's a potential theory. And also, Amy was a damsel in distress in Sonic CD. She clearly is not that here.
No.
So that's why like CD was just completely out of my mind when I saw the scene. I was like, this is different.
Yeah.
This is not like Sonic 2 where, you know, we got introduced to Knuckles in a trailer and Knuckles is being fooled by Eggman. Like, that's Sonic 3 and Knuckles. And it's not like Sonic 3, the movie, where Shadow is awoken and he's working under pretense of like, I need to get vengeance from Maria. I mean, we kind of had an idea what's going on in those movies. We have absolutely no idea what's going on here.
Absolutely.
So
it's
I think we can kind of like, at this point, I think we should just theorize all the way. You know, I would love to hear some of your craziest theories on what could be happening here.
So I am going to backtrack on what I told you the other day and say that I think Eggman is going to come back.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right that they wrote him in a way where like if Jim Carrey doesn't say like he's coming back, that they have like a contingency plan for that. But with that being said, I was watching some interviews with him talking about Robotnik and why he came back, and a lot of it boiled down to like him loving working with like the casting crew. That like, a lot of them have become family at this point. He loves the evolution of the character, and he just feels like Robotnik is right for him, you know, in terms of a character. So it seems like he enjoys very much playing Dr. Eggman, and like, let's be real, there's still room for his mustache and his belly to grow. That's just me being nitpicky here, but like, he could be as big as Gerald was in this movie, and like his mustache could be like way bigger. They could also give him his shades. I don't know. I think personally that it could go one of two ways. Eggman could not be the villain, and it could just straight up just be Metal Sonic. Or, you know, this was a fake out, and like, let's say Sonic Movie 4, we don't see Eggman for a while, and it's revealed towards, not the end of the movie, but towards the middle, that Eggman is back, right?
Oh, that actually would be kind of epic.
Yeah.
Because we're so used to, like in the games at least, that Eggman comes off being like the initial villain at first.
Right.
And then, obviously, like, Monster of the Week takes over, Perfect Chaos, Bio Lizard, Metal Overlord. If they turn the tables here and have the exact opposite, I think that'd be an interesting twist, actually.
And I think, like, considering that they've already got a fourth one planned, and Jim Carrey is just, like, he already said, like, he's not really retired from acting, per se. He said that in the moment. He's more so, like, very cautious about like what he chooses to do next. So he's still acting now.
Yes.
So there's a very high possibility that he will be back for Sonic 4. But I guess we'll see.
I just get the vibe from Jim Carrey that he's not someone, I mean, he's been a very successful actor for a reason. I think he has good intuition.
Yeah.
And I think if he felt in his heart that like Eggman didn't really have much more story to tell in this universe, then he would not sign on again.
Right.
So I think it's very dependent on what they come up with in terms of like a storyline.
Yeah.
It just felt like in this movie, Eggman really grew as a character. Like he really did. And I just cannot picture what other direction they would take him in from this point on.
I actually do have a bit of a theory as to where they could go. So going off of the idea of family, you know, he was betrayed by Gerald, but like, what if we take what Frontiers was doing with Eggman and Sage, and we give that to Eggman and Metal Sonic? And what if Eggman sees Metal Sonic as his son, and he's he's like seeing him grow up before his eyes, and he's kind of like this proud papa until like his son eventually maybe betrays him or something, or like his son grows sentience. Because if you know Metal Sonic in the comics, you know, there's this great one-shot comic in the IDW comics where it has no dialogue. It's Metal Sonic walking around Eggman's lair, and a lot of it has to do with Metal Sonic really trying to find his purpose beyond being a copy of Sonic, you know, being his own person. And I wonder if there's a similar arc for him with that, you know, going forward, you know? I think it'd be interesting for Eggman to kind of see Metal Sonic as his son that he never knew that he wanted, you know? And how that changes him as a character. I think there's plenty. Well, I'm also a filmmaker, so I feel like there's also,
of course,
there's always potential for more growth in Eggman's character. I think he's in the games and in the movies, you know, Eggman I think is one of the most interesting Sonic characters because, you know, he's evil, but he's also goofy too. But he's like very complex. But yeah, I think. The next logical direction is like Metal Sonic is like his surrogate son that he's seeing grow up in front of his eyes. And then
that's an interesting idea because I just am so used to like Heroes was my very first Sonic
Sure.
game, right? So I immediately started off the franchise with Metal Sonic feeling dejected and underappreciated by Eggman and wanted to take matters into his own hands.
Right.
So because that's just sort of like, at least from the games, I'll be honest, I've not really read a lot of the comics. Something I really want to get into. Like I am bad at Sonic fan.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, just from like the games perspective, Metal Sonic always seemed a bit like a lackey, you know,
Yeah.
not really having a lot of like characterization to him besides Sonic Heroes. And so that would be a very interesting angle to take it. And after this movie, I'm not gonna put it outside of like the team's intentions, because clearly they're not afraid to play with the lore and change it up to suit their own needs, which I actually think is very exciting. It's nice that they're feeling confident enough to play around with things and make things a little different, because the changes that they did make in this movie actually worked out really well in my opinion. So I'm starting to trust their judgment more.
It's you know, they streamline it, and like I don't see them doing Sage anytime soon, because I guess as I don't know if I call her popular. I guess she is like popular in the sense like she's the new character, but like I don't think it would make sense to introduce her in Metal Sonic and have them have the same
There's so
arc.
many characters
Yeah.
that you could introduce, and they just got to Amy in Metal Sonic. You still got Rouge, you still got I don't know, Cream and Big, the Chaotix, Silver and Blaze are highly requested too.
Oh yeah.
You know, there's so many other characters they gotta get through first before they would even consider Sage.
Yeah, and like I don't think they would ever do Sage, just because if this is what they're going with in the next movie, Metal Sonic can easily just fill in that role. And maybe Metal Sonic, let's say like the main Metal Sonic is like Neo Metal, right? And he's gaining sentience.
Yeah.
Like what if like he's reliant on like making Eggman proud and like being dependent on like his what's it called? His approval for everything, you know? Like I think that could be a really interesting dynamic. It could be really interesting for Metal Sonic as a character. It could be really interesting for Eggman as a character too, you know? Because it's like, if you think about it, if we're going with like the future angle, right? Them coming from the future, literally Eggman would have seen Metal Sonic grow and like develop into Neo Metal over the years, almost as if he's seeing his son grow up before his eyes. But I did want to also propose another theory.
Okay.
I do think, as much as it scares me because time travel movies could get kind of messy,
I was gonna bring it back to this.
yeah, I do think we're gonna be dealing with time travel in this film.
It makes sense, because if it is gonna be slightly based off of Sonic CD, which it's hard to imagine it not being slightly based off of Sonic CD. Obviously, Sonic CD has a huge time travel component to it.
Right.
So it would just make sense.
And the way Metal Sonic appears in the post-credit scene is very reminiscent of Terminator, which is, you know. Anyways, what's it called? I think time travel is going to be a big factor of the movie. And with that said, in the first Sonic movie, the post-credit scene was of Tails. But in Sonic 2, we got Tails and Knuckles. This is me partly coping, partly not coping. I do think Silver will be in this film. To what extent?
Interesting.
To what extent, I don't know. But if they're doing time travel, I don't think Amy... So here's what I think, right? I think we are going to get some elements of 06 in the sense that Amy does come from a future that is ruined, right? And she comes to Sonic for help. I think what happens is that she does know Silver. Her and Silver are maybe like survivors, because I feel like the cape that she's wearing is something like a warrior would wear, or somebody who's like surviving in like a war or something would wear.
Or, you know, someone that's trying to conceal her identity to not mess with the time-space continuum as much.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly, yeah. So I think Silver, for whatever reason, blames Sonic for the destruction of his worlds, right? But Amy, using her tarot cards, sees Sonic as the catalyst to, preventing that future from ever happening. So I don't know. I think Silver makes a lot of sense. I would be worried just because like it would be a lot of characters.
Yeah.
Which I'm kind of curious as to like what Tails and Knuckles' role in the movie would be. I just can't see them. I can't see them doing a time travel movie with just Amy and Metal Sonic and not have Silver. Like that's such a missed opportunity. I know not a lot of people like Silver, but it's just like he is the time traveling character. How are you not going to have the time traveling character in your time travel movie? Like they have to fit him in somehow, and whether that has to be like him and Amy are like survivors and like some sort of resistance in the future. I don't know. And like I had like a thought where like that the resistance that I was talking about, like it could have Amy, Silver, and then like maybe Team Rose, like Cream and Big, and they're
I was just thinking, because my mind loves to work in trilogies, to be honest.
Yeah, of course.
So I was just like not really sure if I wanted to expect a fourth movie or not. They haven't really made this clear, so this probably isn't a thing, but the first trilogy could be Sonic growing up to become a hero, essentially. And what if in this fourth movie, because you mentioned Tails and Knuckles, you're not really sure what role they would play. What if Amy is from the future, she comes to grab Sonic, and this movie actually barely features Tails and Knuckles? It could be mostly spending time in that timeline with Amy and Silver, allegedly, and whoever else they want to put in there. It would be like almost a bit of a soft reset, which would be really interesting.
I think you're kind of on the right track, because I think there's a deliberate reason why we didn't see the other characters in the post-credit scene and just him. I don't know. It
seems like a lot to do, especially, I mean, the movie is coming out in 2027, right? So it's slightly more time than the previous movie wait times, but it's not that long. So I feel like, I don't know if they were going to do like a bit of a reboot like that, I feel like they would have wanted a little more time, but then again, they might just be they work fast, maybe, apparently. There is that too.
They can. I guess my worry is that, like, if they're still in the movie, how are you going to balance that many characters? Because it's already starting to become really, like, overcrowded.
I mean, the human characters were basically cut from this movie.
They're gone already. I mean,
they're pretty much gone.
I'm more so referring to, like, the other side characters like Tails and Knuckles.
That's why, like, if they were worried about tons of characters, that is an angle they could potentially take it.
Right.
Especially because it's interesting that, however long Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles have been on this planet, there has not been any signs of any other creatures besides Shadow. So it also brings up the question, like, if Amy is from the future, did she just come just now? And is Metal Sonic from the future too? Maybe Metal Sonic traveled back in time to try to eliminate Sonic or something. It's this time travel is creating too many opportunities.
It's creating a lot of questions. Maybe like Amy isn't even like a time traveler. Maybe she's like, she read her tarot cards and she came to warn Sonic, and then he somehow goes into the future. I don't know. Like, I can honestly even see, like, they could pull a Sonic Prime and, like, have future versions of Tails and Knuckles in the future that are, like, very different versions. Like, of, let's say in the future Sonic's dead or something, and it's just them surviving or something. I don't know. This is the problem. There's too many possibilities, and then it's like what's the significance of him like traveling to New York? Like, or is there even any significance to that either way? You know, like,
we could be like, maybe if they are time traveling to the future, it could be taking place mostly in future New York. So that is a potential possibility.
So adjacent Crisis City.
Yeah. Oh, Crisis City as the main location of the fourth movie.
Oh,
that would be. Ooh, we're really cooking.
I think we are cooking, but then it's like
they should just hire us. Fire Patrick Casey.
I guess then my question is like, I guess it does make sense that Amy would come to warn Sonic using her tarot cards, right? But then like, how would Sonic? What would Sonic do to stop Metal Sonic? Like, does it make sense for him to go into the future to like figure stuff out? I don't know, because like
it could, because maybe they have a way of protecting Sonic in the future. Maybe a way to like shelter him, because maybe the way that the timeline originally went is Metal Sonic traveled to the past and eliminated Sonic. I mean, Sonic looked like a pretty hopeless situation, the way that it was like set up before Amy came in.
Right.
So that could have very well have been what was supposed to happen, but then Amy came in and intervened. So maybe that's what's happening here.
I guess my question is more so like, why? I guess I just answered my own question, but I don't know.
We could also think about a scenario where they aren't from the future,
right?
What that would actually mean, because I actually kind of like, I don't really feel like I went that far in terms of my theorization, but I really do like the idea, and it's something that maybe it'd be a lot to fit into like this fourth movie without a little setup, but it's definitely an idea that I could definitely see them approaching in the future, especially if they want to bring in Silver or even Blaze eventually. Like, that's a way to bring them in. I know Blaze isn't from the future, but just like incorporating a whole nother dimension with the future, that might be a little much, to be honest. So you never know. But I'm thinking if Amy is from this timeline and Metal Sonic is from this timeline, a certain theory that I had, now this is me operating under the assumption that Eggman is dead and he's not coming back. So my assumption is that Metal Sonic could have been maybe a failed experiment that Eggman tried to work on after the second movie, but he was failed for a reason. So, I mean, Eggman was definitely in a very depressive state once we saw him. Well, maybe not depressive, more like manic or whatever, crazed state when we saw him in the third movie. But that could have maybe happened after his failed attempts at creating Metal Sonic as well. So it could be a way to still make sure that Eggman has a presence in this fourth movie without him actually being there. And Metal Sonic somehow was able to, fix up himself and create all these copies. And it could be Neo Metal Sonic that's trying to take over the world, because he sees the way that Eggman treated him as very insulting, sort of the way that they went with in Sonic Heroes. Metal Sonic felt underappreciated, rejected, and all that stuff, and he thinks that humans are scum, and he wants to eliminate the entire world of humans and wants the entire world to be taken over by robots. That's why there's tons of copies of Metal Sonic immediately trashing on Sonic. Maybe we'll have like robot copies of Tails and Knuckles too. I think that'd be really cool.
Yes, Tails doll and Metal Knuckles, please. Please.
What would be funny is like they had mostly Tails robots, but then there was a couple dolls for some reason. Like, that'd just be like a fun little reference.
Yeah.
But I really do see it as like just a way to like Amy came in also really gave me this for some reason like a Sat AM kind of vibe where, Robotnik was kind of like the rule of the world and he had robots everywhere. And it could be like a similar scenario here where
that's what I'm thinking.
Metal Sonic is not wasting any time and the entire world is quickly taken over by robots, and Sonic and the gang have to form a resistance to tackle them right away.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
And that'd be like a good way to loop in a bunch of other characters too, but not make them take up too much screen time. They could all just be members of the Resistance.
Exactly.
You know, you could include Cream, you can include Big, you can include Rouge and stuff. And you know, maybe some of these characters will be introduced in this movie, but maybe some of them can also be introduced in like spin-off media. I know there's like talks of like a Shadow movie, for instance, or a second season Knuckles show. You know, there's a lot of ways to bring in more characters here, and that could just be like an easier way to kind of go about it if they don't want to go to the trouble of like incorporating time travel.
Right.
But since this does have like a CD vibe to it, I'm not ruling out time travel. I know that's a possibility.
I think we have to just expect time travel to be there as soon as Metal Sonic appears, you know, and Amy, just because it's so intrinsically like tied to their debut game. But what's it called? I think the Resistance angle makes sense. I think it will have like Amy, Silver, you know, Cream, Big. I don't know. I think there's a lot of directions you could go with it. As to like what Silver's role can be in the film, like maybe he's like bitter towards Sonic in a way because they lost everything. But I'm also kind of worried because if it is time travel, right? And let's say Sonic saves the day at the end, depending on like narratively what version of time travel they want to use, wouldn't that mean those versions of the character, like excluding Silver, Amy, Big, and Cream, they would be lost to time because that future timeline would not exist anymore, right? Yeah,
that's a lot to like kind of grapple with. That's why I'm kind of wondering, I'm kind of thinking that unless they have a really great pitch for it, I hope they avoid the issue.
Yeah, but this is why I'm also thinking like Amy's not from the future. She's just like someone who like predicts the future using tarot cards, and she's like coming to warn Sonic that you know, Eggman has taken over in the future. You know, Metal Sonic has taken over. You have to stop him, and like somehow Sonic has to figure out maybe like getting insights from the future how to stop things from happening in the past. The thing is like the more I talk about it, the more it gets complicated and the more scared I become because these films are very simple. If you think about it.
That's why like I think your ideas are great, but I just have this gut feeling that they wouldn't go that far, even if they do incorporate time travel. I don't feel like they're going to. I mean, they might think about it from all those angles, but I think the final product is going to be like somewhat easily digestible.
It has to.
That's just the nature of these movies.
It has to be, you know, and like I think the simpler the better. Even for Sonic Movie 3, you know, a lot of like corners were cut and like things were interpreted differently for it to be digestible, and honestly, it made for a really solid and streamlined film because let's be honest, Shadow's backstory is kind of a mess in the games, and they streamlined it pretty well in the movies.
It was done very, very solidly, very cleanly,
very tastefully, very nice. So, you know, as much as I want Silver to be in here, I just don't. Maybe he won't be. You know, I think what we can...
if he's not in this one, then that doesn't mean he doesn't have a chance of appearing in a future one. Because these movies are just like on an upward trajectory at this point. I mean, I imagine there's going to be like a ceiling point eventually. Like that's just... it's just the nature of Sonic, you know? It's just like he can only appeal to so many people. He's not like a Mario, unfortunately, or like a big blockbuster Disney film. Like he's just... there's only a certain like part he's gonna go to, which is totally fine for him, because it's still successful. It's still pulling Sega out of the rut. It's still giving us great games like Shadow Generations. Like I'm happy.
I do wonder if they're gonna model this movie after Back to the Future, if you've seen that before, which basically has the most like streamlined version of time travel in movies, where it's like if you affect something in the past, things will change in the future, right? So, you know, let's say in Back to the Future, Marty changed like one little thing, like let's say he like bumped into a fire hydrant, right? Oh, actually, wait. In the
Mhm.
movie, he saves his mother from being hit by a car. I'm sorry, was it his mother? Ah, it's been such a while since I've seen Back to the Future, but essentially,
I'm no help here, just so you know.
essentially, Marty goes back to the past into the 50s, and he runs into his mother and he saves his mother. His mother falls in love with him instead of his father. So, throughout the film, he has to try to get his mom and dad back together before he ceases from existence and before his siblings cease from existence. So, they can do a similar Back to the Future, you know, time travel thing, but like it gets complicated with the idea that we don't know where Amy comes from. Metal Sonic probably has like a higher form in Neo Metal Sonic. We're probably gonna have like a giant kaiju battle with like Metal Overlord. I know that for sure, but
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just so many questions, and then it's like, are they going to adapt Heroes elements in there? Because it does seem like we're heading towards the direction of Neo Metal. So, are we going to see more teams from spin-offs show up in this Avengers style? Because, like you were saying before, Knuckles Season 2 could have the appearance of the Chaotix. We could have, Team Dark in Shadow's spin-off movie. And we could have, like, the appearance of Team Rose in Sonic Movie 4, Like, what do you think?
Yeah.
Like, what are we expecting from this?
So I know that their intention is to make it an Avengers style like franchise. So if that's truly what they want to do, which they've said that they want to do, then I can totally picture them introducing those characters in outside media, in spin-off media like that. And they can appear in the fourth movie then. They just won't really have like huge prominent roles, because the thing about like introducing characters in spin-off media and then putting them in the mainline movie afterwards is you want to do it in a way that
You don't have to watch.
it will pique your interest to like watch the spin-off media, but it's not a requirement to watch a spin-off media. At least I hope that's the angle they're taking it, because if they try to do what Marvel tried to do, then it's not going to work, because Sonic's not Marvel. So it's
good.
I mean, me as a fan, I would definitely watch everything regardless.
Oh, absolutely.
But I can't expect the same out of like what's probably like the majority of the Sonic movie audience. So
and
I think it's possible, but I think that's the direction, that's the angle they should take it, if that's the case.
I just feel like, depending on when these projects come out, because we don't know if there's something in the pipeline for next year. We don't know if there's something in the pipeline for next year in terms of like a Knuckles Season 2 or like a Shadow movie. Well, actually, I'm almost confident in saying that a Shadow movie is probably already in development.
I would be shocked if they weren't doing something Shadow related.
Yeah.
Because Shadow has proven to be a true force this year.
Absolutely.
So he definitely deserves some sort of project. I almost would prefer a TV show, but I guess we'll see.
People were speculating that maybe Shadow is going to be teamed up with Agent Stone in his movie, which would be interesting. It would be better than Wade, but
yeah, Agent Stone actually, that would be an interesting. Agent Stone actually has an interesting story.
Agent Stone is
which
funny.
You can't say for most of the human characters.
Yeah, yeah.
Because his relationship with Dr. Eggman was actually really interesting to see play out in the third movie. And you have a lot of material to explore now that Eggman's gone.
Sure.
Like, who is Agent Stone like after Eggman's death?
Yeah.
That's a very good question that I wouldn't mind exploring, actually, especially if it was paired up with Shadow, because Shadow has a similar bit of a journey to go through too. What's his purpose now that all that is over?
I just think Shadow's backstory, especially with Black Doom and the Black Arms and like all that jazz, I think that's enough to be a whole feature film, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Knuckles
I think so too.
Season 2, I think we were talking about this before. I do think the Chaotix are going to be in there, just because, like, I think we were saying they're going to see how well Sonic 3 does, and if it does well, I think they're gonna up the budget for Knuckles Season 2 so they could put more Sonic characters in there.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's gonna be all fully animated or not, I'm not sure.
I'm like, don't be afraid to just fully animate it. If it's cheaper, then I'd rather have
it looks-
that. Well, you know what? I would have had that from the start.
Yeah.
To be honest.
If it looks like Sonic Drone Home, that like animated short that they did a while ago between like Sonic 2 and 3, then I'm fine with it, honestly. And like I guess the only issue is like what would the story be? Like would it be about like maybe I don't know, Knuckles is trying to figure out elements of his past so he hires like a detective agency or is,
Ooh, that'd be an interesting angle to take.
yeah, and then like this is just me spitballing because I'm an Adventure 1 person, but like maybe Knuckles discovers more about his past than he bargained for, and like he unbeknowingly releases chaos into the world, and him and the Chaotix have to take it down.
I would love to see that, but that does seem a little big for at least like the scope of the Knuckles show.
That's
at least.
true.
Especially because I imagine, I don't know, it's hard to imagine Wade not having a role, to be honest.
God.
I just being honest, I feel like to not really have him be a part of like the second season would just be, it doesn't feel likely. I don't know, there's just something about it. It feels like Wade is ingrained in the DNA of
I would
the show.
agree with you if literally everybody hated the show when it came out, except for critics. Like everyone despised the show, and like for me, like look, I can acknowledge that for a Knuckles show, it's pretty terrible. But
yeah.
I won't lie, I laughed a lot of the time, not because it was good, but because it was stupid and ridiculous. Like the whole bullet.
I have to say that fourth episode with the musical numbers, that was too much for me. That was absolutely way too much for me. I could not even like, I don't think I've sat through the full number once.
No.
I've had to skip over it. It is a level of cringe that I actually cannot tolerate.
No, it's bad. It's bad. And what a waste of Christopher Lloyd for Pachacamac, you know? They made him into a joke character, which like... anyways, the only reason I bring this up is because I think Paramount is starting to see that this is their Marvel. And I think they're starting to see that, you know, not only do the movies need to get bigger, but I think the shows need to get bigger too. You know, they can't just choose.
Yeah.
We can't get another Knuckles season 2 with just Wade and Knuckles, right? I think they need to up the game. I think we do need to see the Chaotix. I think we do need to see.
It just makes the most sense.
It does. It does make the most sense. And like, I think we need to see like, I don't know.
And you know, even Rouge, if they wanted to, could have a role in
I was going to say Rouge. I think Rouge would actually be too much. I do think we're going to see Rouge in Shadow's movie along with Omega. I think that makes more sense. Not because I don't think Rouge makes sense for Knuckles. Like, it's just more so because we would have 3 extra like CG characters next to Knuckles, and I think that's enough.
They could give Rouge a bit of a role in introducing Knuckles in the 4th movie. In that case, that would give Knuckles sort of something to like work with, essentially.
True. I mean, they could also in the show, like they could also be like Knuckles discovering Angel Island for the first time and like returning him to status quo. I don't know. I'm just like
we're
spitballing here.
we're going a little. We've definitely covered many areas at this point, just from a single 2-minute post-credit
That's
scene.
how good it was.
But I mean, yeah, like that's the thing is like this is very. Just to start wrapping things up, this is very unprecedented territory because, like I said, you kind of had an idea what was gonna happen in the 2nd, 3rd movie, but this 4th movie, I don't know if you can tell at this point, y'all, but it's very clear that there's no obvious direction they can take this in.
No, I mean, I think they clearly know what they want to do since they already have like a release date plans. They probably have like a rough outline of what they want to do, and they just got to clean it up. But It's tough. It's tough. Like, I was. This is like, I'm actually kind of scared of Amy's casting because my friend actually sent me like a joke tweet where it's like Aquafina as Amy, and I was like, hell no, hell no,
I saw
get
that
garbage
too.
out of here, garbage casting, get out of here. It's probably gonna be a big name actress if I had to guess, but not her.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
But yeah, it's like we're in unprecedented territory. Sonic's at the top of his game, you know, in terms of like cross multimedia, you know, like Shadow's at the top again. It's just an upward trajectory from here, you know, and like
It's a good time to be a Sonic fan, I have to say.
It
you
is.
know, the amount of people that came up to me being like, wow, I really want to start playing Sonic games now. What do you recommend? It has been crazy.
Yeah, I think what's crazier is trying to come up with that list with more than 10 games. But most of them are like not accessible right now. You know?
Yeah.
But
I'm like, Shadow Generations is right
yeah,
there.
no, that's a great start. And I do hope like this has nothing to do with the movies, but I hope like the continued success of the movies and like the movie universe does influence Sega to like pump up the quality of their games. We're already seeing it with Shadow Gens, but I really hope like from Shadow Gens to Frontiers 2 we see another massive leap and like we can be, I don't know, then we could truly be at the top. I think like in terms of pop culture, Sonic is back in like a positive light. But I think in terms of games, we still have a little ways to go.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, like, I was just talking to someone before we did this, how Astrobot won Game of the Year. Maybe platformers are on the rise too, and Sonic is very well equipped to be at the front of that, you know, movement. So.
He is. We just need momentum back and less automation. But that's a discussion for another day.
But you know what, Ty? It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, man.
We have a lot to think about, but to look forward to in 2027. Who knows what I'll be doing in that year?
Yeah.
You know, maybe picking up trash. We'll see.
Oh God, it's such a long. It seems like it's so far away, but like
it's gonna come before you.
Yeah,
even know
I
it.
just felt like I watched Sonic Movie 2 in theaters with my brothers, like not too long ago.
I know.
I can't believe we're number 3.
That's crazy.
But yeah, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it, and can't wait to discuss more Sonic with you in the future.
Of course. You all have any questions or comments? Then let us know down below. But otherwise, thank you. And this is Riders riding out.
Hi guys.